Okay, the next question is evaluate the contribution of the Mahāyānis to global Buddhism. Okay, the Mahāyāna or Great Vehicle emerged around the 1st century BCE as a reform movement within Buddhism, emphasizing universality, compassion, and the salvation of all beings. Unlike the earlier Theravāda Hinayana tradition, which focused on individual liberation through the Arhat idea, Mahāyāna broadened the scope of Buddhist practice and philosophy. Its teaching, scripture, and cultural expression play a decisive role in transforming Buddhism into a global and enduring religion. A central contribution of the Mahāyānis was the promotion of the Bodhisattva idea, which encouraged practitioners to pursue enlightenment not solely for themselves, but for the welfare of all sentient beings. This shift fostered a spirit of universal compassion, that is karuna, and altruistic service, making Buddhism more inclusive and appealing to both monks and lay disciples. By emphasizing selflessness, the Mahāyāna strengthened the ethical and humanity dimension of Buddhist practice. Mahāyāna Buddhism enriched the intellectual and doctrinal foundation of the faith through a vast body of sutra and philosophical work. Key texts such as the Lotus Sutra, Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, and the Prajna Paramita Sutra, that is perfection of wisdom, introduce new ideas about the nature of reality, enlightenment, and devotion of celestial Buddha and Bodhisattva like Amitabha, Avalokiteshvara, and Manjusri. Philosophical schools such as Madhyamika, founded by Nagarjuna, emphasize sunyata, that is emptiness, while Yogacara explore the working of consciousness. This teaching deepened Buddhist thoughts and influenced religion philosophy across Asia. Mahāyānis actively spread Buddhism beyond India, reaching Central Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Mongolia, and Southeast Asia. Their adaptability allowed the faith to integrate local beliefs and customs, giving rise to diverse traditions such as Zen, Pure Land, and Vajrayana. The Mahāyāna also enriched Buddhist culture through arts, architecture, and ritual, inspiring monumental creation like the Bamiyan Buddhas, Borobudur, and the Donghua Cave mural, which convey Buddhist ideas visually and devotionally. In summary, the Mahāyānis make enduring contribution to global Buddhism by expanding its ethical vision, developing profound philosophical system, producing rich literature, spreading the faith widely, and inspiring artistic and cultural achievement. By emphasizing universal compassion and the Bodhisattva idea, they transform Buddhism into a truly global religion with lasting spiritual, cultural, and intellectual influence. Their legacy continues to inspire millions worldwide, highlighting the universal appeal and adaptability of the Mahāyāna tradition. I think it's very important that they adopt this bodhisattva. For us, Theravāda, the bodhisattva, they are actually on their path, accumulating merits over many, many lives, but have not yet attained nirvana. They are still within the cycle of samsara. Whereas for the Mahāyāna, the bodhisattva, they are actually liberated. An advanced bodhisattva has actually attained enlightenment and is free from defilement. However, they voluntarily postpone their final nirvana and remain active in samsara out of compassion. So this is what I want to explain. This is what their contribution to the global Buddhism. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my copy to you.
Okay.
My pretty long-winded. So to provide a comprehensive explanation, we will break down the contribution Mahāyāna into several key thematic areas. Philosophical and doctrinal innovation, expanding the universe of Buddhist thought. Mahāyāna introduced revolutionary philosophical concepts that fundamentally reshape Buddhist ontology, epistemology, and soteriology, attitude of starvation. So they talk about Bodhisattva idea. The arguably Mahāyāna's most significant contribution is shifted to ultimate spiritual path for individual liberation of Arahant of the early Buddhism to the compassionate path of the Bodhisattva as a being who vows to attain full Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. This idea of boundless compassion, karuna, and wisdom, prajna, became the ethical and spiritual path of Mahāyāna, making altruism the central driving force of the path. Next, they introduced the sunyata, emptiness, and the Mahāyāna school founded by Nagarjuna. So this middle way school represents a radical doctrine of emptiness. It posits that all phenomena are empty of inherent and independent existence. They exist only independent of other causes and conditions. So this was not nihilism, but a middle path between eternalism and annihilism, deconstructing the fixed view to reveal the ultimate and truth of reality. So this profound philosophy influenced not only on subsequent Buddhist schools, but also the modern physics and philosophy. And then the Buddha nature, Tathagata, in a move that complements the sometimes austere concept of sunyata, the Tathagata, the Buddha womb or the Buddha essence, teaching proposed that all beings possess the inherent potential to become a Buddha. So this doctrine, prominent in schools like the Zen and Tibetan Buddhism, make enlightenment and immanent accessible reality within all beings, providing a foundation of faith and a positive goal for practice. So the doctrine of three bodies. So this one, if you study Mahāyāna, you have this very topic to study. The three bodies, the Mahāyāna symptomized the Buddha into three bodies. The Nimanaka, the historical physical manifestation. That means the Siddhartha Gautama, the past, he was alive here. And then the Samogakaya, the bliss of enjoyment body, a celestial form that teaches the Dhamma to the advanced Bodhisattva. And then the Dhammakaya, the true body, the formless ultimate reality itself, synonymous with Sunyata and the Buddha nature. This framework allows for a more complex understanding of Buddhahood and explain the existence of the myriad celestial Buddhas and the Bodhisattva in the Mahāyāna cosmology. And then second thing is that they practice devotional and popular piety, making Buddhism accessible to all. Mahāyāna dramatically democratized the Buddhist practice, moving it beyond the monastic elite. The propagation of the celestial Buddha and the Bodhisattva, Mahāyāna populate the spiritual universe with compassion being like Avalokiteshvara, who became a Guan Yin in China and Kannon in Japan, the Manjushri, wisdom, and Amitabha, the Buddha of infinite light. So this figure became objects of devotion, offering hope and assistance to lay people. Faith in Abhidhamma, for instance, forms the core of the Pure Land Buddhism, while devotees aspire to reborn in the Western paradise. a path accessible to everyone, regardless of scholarly or meditative prowess. The role of faith, Strada, and devotion, Bhakti. While early Buddhism emphasized personal effort, Mahāyānas incorporate faith as a powerful spiritual faculty. Chanting mantra like Om Mani Padme Hum, reciting Buddha namesake Amitabha, and making offering became a central practice, creating an emotional and devotional connection to divine. And the concept of skillful means, upaya. This doctrine justified the adaptation of teaching to the capacity and contact audience. It allowed it for a vast diversity of practices, rituals, and even provisional teaching, all seen as valid means to guide beings toward enlightenment. This theological principle was crucial for Buddhism's success adaptation across Asia. And then third one is a scripture and literary expansion, a new canon. Mahāyāna produced a vast corpus of scriptures which claimed were the higher or more complex, complete teaching of the Buddha. Prasmamita, perfection wisdom. This text, including the famous Heart Sutta and Diamond Sutta, are foundation of the Sunyata philosophy. Their pithy and paroxystic style will have an enduring influence. The Lotus Sutra, Saddhamma Punarika, a hugely influential text that promotes the idea of one vehicle, Ekayana, asserting that the three vehicles taught in early Buddhism are ultimately just skillful means leading to singular goal of Buddhahood. It also emphasized the eternal nature of Buddha. And the Vimakiri Nerisishta Sutta. This unique text glorified layman Vimakiri, who surpassed the disciple of the Bodhisattvas in his understanding of the Dhamma, powerfully challenging the monopoly of monastic community in the spiritual authority. Next one, global dissemination and culture adaptation. It was primarily the Mahāyāna form of Buddhism that traveled along the Sea Road and the maritime routes, shaping the culture of East Asia and later the West. Signification and East Asian Buddhism, Mahāyāna doctrine synthesized with Taoist and Confucian thought in China, giving rise to discipline schools like Chan, the Chen in Zen in China, in Japan, emphasizing direct experience and meditation over scriptures, profoundly influenced art, culture, and the samurai ethos in Japan. And Pure Land, becoming most popular form of Buddhism in East Asia, focusing on the faith of Amitabha Buddha. The Tiantai, a synectic school that attempt to classify all Buddhist teaching into a coherent hierarchy. And the Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism, which is often classified separately. Vajrayana is built entirely upon the Mahāyāna foundation, incorporating its Bodhisattva idea and philosophy, adding a complex system of tantric practices to accelerate the path of enlightenment. Transmission to the West. When Buddhism began to captivate the Western world in the 19th century and 20th century, it's often the Mahāyāna form that were most prominent, Zen Buddhism, with the focus on meditation and direct experience resonate with artists, philosophers, and psychologists. Tibetan Buddhism, with a rich iconography and profound teaching, attract widespread interest after the Chinese invasion of Tibet. The accessibility of Pure Land practices also found in home in Western context. Summary and conclusion. The contribution of Mahāyānas to global is nothing short of transformative. They have a universal path, the path to the Bodhisattva idea and the Buddha nature doctrine. They make enlightenment a real potential and compassionate central virtue. Deepen philosophy. They include a profound and challenging doctrine of Sunyata and a two-truth, convention ultimate, pushing the Buddhist philosophy to a new heights of sophistication. Democratized practice. By embracing devotion of faith, the veneration of a celestial being, they created a Buddhism that was accessible and meaningful to the lay majority, not just a monastic elite. Enable culture Buddhicity. Through the principle of skillful means, they provide the theological justification of Buddhism to adapt, survive, and flourish in vastly different culture, from the steppe in Central Asia to the island of Japan, and now the city of the modern West. Therefore, when one thinks of Buddha, compassion, chants the mantra, reads the Zen koan, or encounter the Dalai Lama speaking of universal responsibility, one is witnessing the enduring global legacy of Mahāyāna movement. It successfully reframed a primarily renunciate tradition into a world embracing religion of profound philosophy and boundless compassion. This was taken by one article in the Mahāyāna one. So I will share with you all after the lecture. Thank you. Who's the next one?
Okay, my share. Yeah.
Can I ask a few points? Because I thought it would be good if Sister Peglen add in more recent cases, or even Brother Lao's one, if you can add, because now it's not only the Dalai Lama which is popular, even the Taiwan groups are also very popular because on the compassion and the charity aspect of it, and they use that as a vehicle to reach out and to share their what you call their ideals of basic ethics and the generosity. For example, the Tzu Chi, and then the other one, the Ho Kwang San. All these are very, very dynamic groups. So if you can add in onto the article, that I think maybe make it more current. That's my point. Thank you. Okay, it's okay with me now. Is Sister Sumitra, you want to continue on?
Okay, I will just flash through my slides because Brother Lau had already discussed on that. So because actually Brother Lau had made the very systematic approach to tackle the same questions in chronological orders. So I will just briefly browse through. So what I listed here as introduction, that they have this question, trace the development that led to the emergence of Mahāyāna doctrines as a separate school of Buddhism. Because they already have a lot of different interpretation of the sutra. So as the main point, the first key development that I included is actually there were already early pluralism within the Nikaya Buddhism, where they already have a lot of different interpretation of the Dhamma and focus and emphasis on certain Nikayas. Second one is the introduction of the Bodhisattva ideal. So this is a new concept, and it has clicked another doctrinal change or philosophical change, that they expanded the cosmology, the nature of the Buddha, to supra-mundane beings, which is a bit diverse from the original Theravāda thinking. The fourth one is their philosophical innovation, where they introduce the concept of emptiness, shunyata, by the Madhyamika school. Another one is they have the Yogacara theory, which emphasizes on the consciousness, and which is the construction of the apparently external object that we encounter in the world. So they focus a lot on cognition, perception, consciousness, etc. And then they overtake the repository consciousness, alaya, vijnana. So that's the Buddha nature. So the fifth one is the emergence of new literature that you all have mentioned before, like the Lotus Sutta, the Heart Sutra, etc., where the texts were put in this so-called Sanskrit. And since these texts, they present the Bodhisattva path as normative and more superior to the Sāvaka and Pacceka Buddha path, which is the Arahant path. So, and the sixth being the roles and the monks in the ascetic, where they have contributed more on this more scholastic studies of the scriptures that present to Mahāyāna scriptures. 7, inclusion of laity as lay bodhisattva and the devotional search, where a lot of rituals and devotional practices had made more layperson involved in the teaching, and majority of them are in the Mahāyāna schools. So the 8th one is the patronage and trade route, where a lot of merchants, they have founded a lot of monastery, translation, ritual centers, and it's a helping factor that promoted the Mahāyāna doctrine. Last but not least, the social cultural adaptation and syncretism. So in the Central and East Asia, Mahāyāna flourishes, and it leads to the development of becoming another major school of Buddhism. So as conclusion, I would say Mahāyāna Buddhism emerged gradually through the emergence of new sutras and bodhisattva ideas within the existing Nikaya structures, philosophical systematization, devotional and lay-driven energy, and transgressional diffusion and crystallized distinct identity. Anyway, whether one follows Arahat or Bodhisattva ideas, the core devotional practice and philosophical aspiration and training is actually of the same nature, that is, adherence to the Buddha's teaching by focusing on virtue, concentration, and wisdom, nevertheless, emphasis on cultivating metta and karuna. The daily life practice align where one reduces greed, hatred, and delusion for the welfare of all beings. Hence, even though the establishment of Mahāyāna doctrine appear as a separate school of Buddhism, we shall see it as a diversity in the interpretation of the Buddha's teaching rather than a split in the schism. So these are the preferably what I have browsed through. So, Brother Lau, shall I proceed to the last one? I run briefly, yeah. Okay. The last question is actually explain the concept of Bodhisattva Bhumi in the Mahāyāna schools. So actually, in contrast to the Theravāda Buddhism, Mahāyāna venerates the Bodhisattva. So according to them, the Mahāyāna teaching, there are 10 grounds or level or stages for a Bodhisattva to progress from the inner state of a common person until they reach the spiritual path of Buddhism, Buddhahood. So this is just a brief note of what happened for all the 10 stages with the perfection they attain at each state, and there are special skills which is listed for all the stages. So I have briefly given all this. For the first one, the joyous ground. At this stage, one attains the direct understanding that the 5 aggregates have the nature of non-self. All phenomena are viewed as empty and are subject to decay, suffering, and death, and so Bodhisattva lose all attachment to them. So the Bodhisattva train in ethics in order to cleanse the mind of negativity. Second state is stainless. So here, the Bodhisattva perfected his ethics. He is free from impurities, overcome all tendency towards engagement in negative action. The third stage is the light maker or luminous. where they cultivated the perfection of patience, where the Buddha understood that one's present suffering is only the result of one's own past deeds, and had gained penetrating insight into the nature of phenomena. The fourth stage is the brilliant state. So here the Bodhisattva cultivate the perfection of effort and eliminate afflictions. And he practiced meditation for extended periods of time. During the fifth stage, which is the very hard to conquer state or difficult to cultivate, where Bodhisattva have cultivated the perfection of samadhi and fully penetrate the meaning of the Four Noble Truths and the two truths, which is the conventional truth and ultimate truth, and perceive all phenomena as empty, transient, and prone to suffering. For the sixth stage, which is the turning towards, here at this level, the Bodhisattva clearly perceives the working of the 12 links of dependent origination and directly understand signlessness, that is, seeing the emptiness and impermanence of all things. The seventh state, the far going or gone far ground or state level. So at this level, the Bodhisattva developed the ability to contemplate signlessness uninterruptedly and enter into advanced meditative absorption for extended period of time. So he attained advanced skillful means. The eighth is the unshakable or unmovable, where the Bodhisattva will no longer waver on the path or backslide. So the Bodhisattva has attained and realized equivalent to the Theravāda Arhat. At this level, a Bodhisattva had achieved his Nirvana and no longer any inclination to seek personal Nirvana. Number 9. Okay. Number 9, the good mind, where he gained all the 4 analytical knowledges, comprehend all nature of Dhamma, and perfected his ability to teach. The 10th is the cloud of Dhamma. This is where the Bodhisattva cultivate the perfection and exalted wisdom, the perfection of knowledge, and they emerge as the Buddha. So, as conclusion, the 10 stages or level of cultivation describe the detailed breakdown of the progressive Mahāyāna training path of the Bodhisattva, starting from an ordinary earthling whom had aspired to observe the Bodhisattva vow until they become the awakened Buddha for the benefit of the others. By generating the Bodhicitta, individuals are motivated to develop wholesome mindset and mind states and carry out wholesome volitional acts along the training path. Each level marks definite advancement in one's training that is accompanied by progressively greater power and wisdom. The trainer underwent strict observation of morality, attaining meditative absorption, and finally acquired the utmost wisdom with firm determination. Then they arise as the Buddha.
Okay, good word. Do a lot of research on this.
Okay, that's my...
Okay, any more questions? No, almost 3 hours. We close the session soon.